Denzel Mensah.
What's up, bro?
Uh, and today's stream is titled The Secrets of the Universe. Erik and Denzel figure out the secrets of the universe. And it's meant to be a stream for like philosophical discussions on life and whatever, from small to big, you know. Doesn't We can keep it light, we can keep it big. And we did it as a live stream because we encourage you to ask questions and to interact and to share your thoughts as we go. And I thought I'd start things off simply by asking Denzel, do you think we think enough about like the deeper issues of life and like why we are here and why we do what we do and where we are headed in life?
Um, I would say, well, of course, it depends on like who the person is, but I think that as a human race, especially like now as millennials, I think that we have begun thinking about life in a different way than our past ancestry have been doing so. Like recently, especially with all the things such as like MBTI now, like, you know, becoming more prominent and understanding ourselves and individuality and purpose in life. And so I feel like we have been, you know, thinking and pondering on a lot of like different stuff. And we even have like stuff like such as movies such as The Matrix, where it always has you thinking about like reality and everything. And so yeah, of course it's not going to be everyone who is thinking about all of the fascinations and mysteries of life, but I think that a good majority, a good chunk of us are, and I think that's very healthy for us as well.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think any type benefits especially from thinking about these questions, or do you think all types benefits equally?
I wouldn't say that all types benefit equally, because I think that for a lot of types it can become sort of a blockage or distraction. Like, I think that I'm a strong advocate for us having our minds wired the way they are for a reason. Like, I'm a Christian, so I believe that, you know, God specifically made each type a specific type for a reason. You have a purpose on this earth for a reason. And so when there's certain types that are like, you know, like SE users, for example, who are just really in the moment, and you know they're not really supposed to like think like too deeply about like all these things, like at least not often, I guess, in my opinion, because it'll distract them from the now. And sometimes even NI users or even NE users who like tend to like think about all of these things, they're thinking about life and all of its purposes as they're walking across the street, and then now they don't even have life anymore because they're thinking about life and everything. They're distracted from their surroundings, they're distracted from what's going on today, and they get hit by a car, you know, something that was kind of morbid, but you know, just basically, I guess to answer that question, yeah, I don't think that every type benefits equally, but I do think that we should have like a sort of balance depending on what type you are.
Yeah, I think ISTJs and ESTJs and ESTPs, like they benefit from thinking philosophically about life, but only as a means to an end. I think, like to get more in touch with reality and to get more in touch with themselves and who they are, like, but only for that means. And when it becomes like beyond that mean, and when it starts like taking over and distracting from it all, that's when I think that it's not good anymore. I don't think uh, it works as well for people then.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And it's funny, even like, okay, so I guess like a question that I would ask is, if it's like a means to an end, but they're NI DOMs, such as like INTJs, do you believe that they they have that means to an end? Like, do they have like a specific purpose of every single time, like why they're thinking or processing something, or is it just be taking in information no matter what, even if there's not really like an end goal that I have for this? I don't know if that question came out as clear as it did in my head.
Like, I do think to an INTJ, for example, it's not a means to an end, it's an end in itself. It's for ISTJs more that it becomes more like a means to an end. It's that I think an ISTJ and an ESTP, I think they're also kind of susceptible sometimes to intuition, and that intuition can get in their head in a way, like that distracts them in a bad way. Like, I've noticed that ISTJs are like really sensitive to ideas, and if you give them an idea or if you say something and it's like too abstract for them, I feel like they kind of makes them worry, and I find that it kind of makes them a little antsy almost at times in that it makes them do things that are kind of stupid, and they kind of go on about it, and uh, in a way that's not going to work really.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. I actually was talking to an SI Dom recently, or about like three of them, and um, I've seen it like, especially like with inferior and E, then they tend to like really just hyper ventilate about a lot of things, like, oh well, what if this happens, or what if that happens, or and it's like, whoa, this is really irrational things that you're like thinking about um when it comes to these things. But yeah, I guess like that further, like, yeah, establishes my point. Like, there's some types that um they really probably should not think about all of these things, because they're just much better at looking at what's been tried and true, what's been experienced, and what's right in front of them, and all of that, and using that information to their benefit. And so, yeah, I think all types do benefit from it. Like, I wouldn't say that no type should not do it, and I would not say that no type should do it. But, well, yeah, I'm saying like every type should do it to an extent. You know.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect summary in a way. I thought going back a little, I should say I'm an agnostic atheist, but I still find myself relating a lot to what you said about how it's kind of everyone has a given purpose. I find that if you are an ISTJ, I think that is your life purpose. That's what you enjoy the most. That's what motivates you the most. That's what gives you the strongest sense of. Then I find that a lot of people are cut off from their purpose, like they don't know what they want to do in life. They don't have the strength to stand up for themselves and what they believe in, and they struggle with like self-confidence issues and so on. And I find that
Mm.
that makes it harder to also type them accurately, because I think do you think that it's possible to know yourself or to type yourself accurately if you are struggling in these aspects of life?
Yeah, I think I think that once you, if you know about the cognitive functions well enough, I think it is possible, because then you're able to know which cognitive functions you're just using unhealthily. And so, in the same way that somebody else, from an objective standpoint, can look at you and be like, oh, that's just a very unhealthy ESTJ, because they're using their tertiary NE in an unhealthy manner. They're like in that TENE loop. They're not really getting as much into their SI. And I believe that that's a form of, like, if that ESTJ was to look at cognitive functions, they'd still relate to TESINE and FI, but they would just be like, oh, okay, I'm using this not in the way that I should be using it. So in a way, they'd still be able to like accurately type themselves, in my opinion.
I think that's a good point. I find what I try to do when I notice that people are struggling to be themselves, like if they send me a video asking for a typing or whatever, is I tend to backtrack a little. I look at the inferior functions that they show, and I notice that people usually keep their inferior functions kind of as a break to rein themselves in, to kind of hold themselves down a little, like an
True.
INFP using thinking and judging and rules in a way to kind of restrain themselves from speaking out in a way. And
Yeah.
like I think that's really funny, like with INTPs, for example, because I noticed that they are always like trying to keep themselves from warming up, from like uh, becoming like blushing in a sense. And
That is,
they're like, it looks
I've
sometimes like
noticed
they're,
that.
yeah, it looks like they're always kind of fighting off a blush, and because they're like, no, I don't want it.
So how would you say that comes out for you, being an INFJ with inferior SE? Are you just lazy all day?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that. Oh, when I'm in extroverted sensing, I start watching TV maniacally. But no, I don't think that's SE. I don't think they know
Right.
what SE
Yeah.
is. Uh,
Yeah.
I notice a lot, and I am very intuitive. I'm very much in touch with my intuition, in particular. Not so much with my sensing. Maybe not as good as I would like with my feeling. Uh, as I tend to, under sensing, become a little restless or rushed. Like I have an answer, I have a question I'm wondering about, and I kind of want to figure it out immediately. I want to like rush to the answer. Like, okay, what is the answer then? And I can get a little shallow then, a little rushed, and that happens sometimes.
Mm, mm, mm. How long do you think it usually takes for you to like process and ponder on answers? Because I know, like, especially as an NI Dom, like my friend David, um, answers usually come to me like a little bit quicker than, well, a lot quicker actually than him. And he really takes time to like really like process it. And of course, I believe that's because like, you know, his NI and TI are like stronger than mine, and then my NI is like right above like SE. So it's like, and then I lead with the judging function. So I sort of already know like what I want in my decisions and everything. But for you as an INFJ, like how would you say that? Like how long would you say that it takes for you to like make those decisions or come to certain conclusions with answers?
Now we're getting there. I think my biggest issue in life is making decisions. I have
But
a
you're a
strong
judge. You're
idea.
a judge.
I know. It's just that, like, obviously, I've made a lot of decisions in my life, and I've done a lot of things, and I've been overall quite a proactive person, and I've been quite focused. But I do feel that I rein myself in too much a lot of the time, and I spend too much time kind of on the drawing table. The last 3 weeks, I've spent a lot of time just doing theory work, and that meant my video quality and my what I posted, of course, was of much lower quality, and it's very hard for me to produce. Like I can do it in sprints, and then I end up having to go back to the drawing table to make sure that I can come up with new insights to share. So it's a sprint, and then I stop and think. And then I can sprint, and then I can stop and think.
Interesting, interesting. That makes a lot of sense actually, because and I was even like I was joking like about the oh you're a judger type of thing because I think a lot of people have the misconception that you know like all judgers they're just very decisive all the time. But then I get that's where learning about the cognitive functions comes in handy because then you know that a judger is like even like a judger can be leading with the perceiving function such as the INFJ and the INTJ. And so then making decisions isn't always as easy for them. They just have a judging function, which would be FE in your case. And I guess that could just go into the next question. Like, how would you say you like is FE hard for you to like get into? Do you usually find yourself in an NITI loop, or is FE like a little bit more like natural for you to get into and all of that?
Well, I've been working a lot on a subtype theory to discuss like these differences, the NITI loop, the FE loop, and like how they manifest in an INFJ. And I relate to being predominantly an introverted and intuitive INFJ. Uh, and I relate to having feeling and judging as my weakest developed letters.
Mm,
Um, that puts me as a yellow INFJ. Those are usually more peaceful and steady because introversion, when you're in touch with your first letter, you tend to become more calm and rational in a sense, like in your analysis, more steady in yourself and what you think and what you believe. When you're in touch with your second letter, you tend to become more open minded and able to consider various perspectives. So I shut my feeling and judging down a little bit because I am so open minded that I can always see the other person's side. And I can always like see the different perspectives, and that sometimes keeps me from sharing with other people, sharing how I
mm,
feel and how I think. Take too long to kind of verbalize how I feel. Um,
interesting.
and I think too much. Like I have to make sure I understand everything before I act.
I think every INFJ can relate to that. I think too much. My INFJ friend David, ever since we were kids, like we've known each other ever since we were 2 years old, and as far as I can remember, of course, this is way before I even knew about MBTI. I was always like the decisive one. Like they often refer to me as like Tommy Pickles, even though I don't believe Tommy Pickles is ENFJ but INFP. But same kind of like, decision making, like taking lead and all of that. And my friend David, who's INFJ, he was famous for his quote, like, I'd rather be safe than sorry. So he, just like you, he would be always just writing down, like, the schematics and all of that, like going back to the drawing board, while I'm more inclined to just jump in and let my intuition lead me. And so I feel like that's something that's very interesting and a good way to like tell the difference between an ENFJ and an INFJ. Like ENFJs and even ENTJs, they're really good at allowing their intuition to load up to, I'd say, like maybe like 75%, 80%, and then letting the rest of the 20, like letting that intuition like lead them into whatever their goal is. And for INFJ, I'd say like they probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, y'all probably let your intuition load up to like 95 to 98%. And then it's like, all right, this last 2%, I'm trusting you, external world, to guide me. Do you have any words on that?
It's all true. It's all true. I thought I'd go a little bigger from a sense, away from type for a second.
Sure.
And I was thinking like into the future. INFJs like to talk about the future. Uh, what career would you like to have if you lived like 50 to 100 years into the future? If you can invent like a future career, like what would you do in the science fiction earth?
I would do the same thing that I want to do right now, which is life coaching and personal development. And I think that would be perfect because it's like, well, he's had a lot of experience in life living that long, And so I would love to just continue to build into my legacy of helping people live the best life that they possibly can live. And I've started doing this on my YouTube channel. I have this thing called spontaneous speaking videos where like I have like 4 different things that go on my YouTube channel. Like I have the MBTI material, then I have spontaneous speaking videos. I have like, relationship advice, a whole bunch of other stuff. But for the spontaneous speaking videos, I just talk about like my life experiences and stuff that I've been thinking about or dwelling on in my NI. And I use that information to try and like influence and help people to live a better life. And I think that I'm just very inclined to mentorship and coaching. So if I was to live that long, I would just love to have like either one person or like a few group of people that I'm able to coach one-on-one or like disciple and help them live their ultimate life.
That's awesome, really. I was just thinking when you started answering that question, like um, a speaker, a mentor, a coach, that kind of careers existed since like the ancient times. Like I think there always has been like storytellers and mentors and people that have offered guidance. It's kind of like archetypal almost to be in that role.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel like, because I've been thinking about this lately, like, do you feel like there are any limitations to being, do you think you can get stuck in a mentor role or like being that kind of person to other people? And do you feel like there is something else you would like to do beyond that?
That's a really good question. Um, are I don't, nah, I actually don't think so. I feel like, yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I feel like as of now, that's like my ultimate high. Like just knowing, and maybe it's because I'm an FE Dom. So, and then I'm very in tune with my intuition. So, just knowing that I'm helping people on a grand scale for long term betterment of life and society altogether. Like the more people that I help in society, the better society will become for the long run. And I'm leaving my fingerprint in that way. I'm making a difference in the world. And I feel like maybe if I thought long enough, I could possibly reach even further than that. But as of right now, I feel like that's like that's a big enough goal in and of itself. But I'd like to ask you the same question. Like, if you were to live for that long, like, what type of job would you want to pursue?
Something that I've always found like really fascinating is like space and like exploration and seeing new things and exploring new worlds. I don't know. I always felt like it would be besides like what I do now. I love what I do now. I love being a YouTuber. I love writing. I love thinking and like everything I do about my life. But I also like the thought of being an explorer and like being able to explore maybe space or virtual realities or like new worlds in some way if it was possible.
So you would love to be like a character in Tron, sort of,
Yeah,
where
that would
even
be.
like an astronaut would, like, if you were given the opportunity to go out into space, do you think that you would have accepted it?
It would be very scary, I think. At least if it's anything like it's now, with all the suits and like not having any nature around, I feel like that would be really difficult if it was like it is today. Because for me, nature is such a big thing, like such an important thing. If I didn't have that, I don't know if I would probably get really depressed in space.
Interesting. That brings up another question. What would you consider nature? Because I so I'm guessing from what you just said, you wouldn't really consider space, like outer space, as nature in a way, right? Or like, what would your definition of nature be? Now we're
Nature.
really exploring the universe.
Yeah, yeah, I guess there you have a point there. Like it's hard to explain, but I feel life is important. Like to be around life, and that means animals. That means maybe not mosquitoes, but
Oh, yeah, nobody
like
likes mosquitoes.
trees or whatever. Like that's things that I don't know. You feel at peace when you're surrounded by nature and people and animals for some reason. At least I do.
Got you. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because I was just thinking of the nature of the word nature. It's like that would mean natural in a way, and looking at space in and of itself, space or outer space is like a natural cause, or it's natural in and of itself, and so it's like, would that be considered nature? And of course, I guess that's something that I'll allow to bang around in my NI, like for the next few days, not try to process right now. But I just wanted to get your quick insight on that since it just came to mind.
Yeah, I totally get you. Like I studied sustainable development for a long time, and one thing they're really adamant about there is that cities are also nature. People tend to think of nature as something far away, outside the city.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but cities are nature too, in a way. Um, but the depressing part of nature in a way. Like I don't like cars. I don't like noise pollution too much. I don't like the stress of the big city with everyone pushing each other's around and like everyone like the boxes and all the buildings and like maybe I appreciate the architectural aspects of it to some extent, but overall, uh, parks make you feel at peace in a different way.
That's funny because I'm actually in New York City right now. And outside my window, I see all the cars, I see the tall buildings. I'm in the Bronx, not Manhattan, but it's still considered the city. And yeah, like it's interesting though how, although it's in city life, you still see like a lot of the trees. They have a lot of parks over here as well. But yeah, it's not as natural of a park as, like, for example, my school in Virginia, where it's like that there's nature just all around. Like, you won't see deer around here. So I see what you mean.
Yeah, I had another question, and that is, uh, are you an optimist or a pessimist about our future?
I'm very, very optimistic about our future. And I think this comes from and I being in an auxiliary position. So for me, what I've personally like noticed is that because my NI is serving FE, then in a way I would describe my NI as being able to intuitively know the exact buttons in life to push in the exact order to get the exact results that I want. And being an FE Dom, it's like, oh, people, like I naturally know like the buttons are people basically. And so in a way, it's kind of like if I, being an idealist type, an NF, if I idealize the world to be, you know, this great place and everything, I have that power to make it that way. And I guess that kind of like ties in with my whole like mentorship and like coaching and everything. Like if I can help as many people as I can, including myself, to become the best version of myself, then there's no reason to fear for our future and for society, because as long as I'm doing my part and creating harmony, then and my part's like really grand, then other people will also be doing the same. And so yeah, I tend to not really have like a pessimistic view of anything, but I also want to say like I'm not like unrealistic as well. Like I'm very aware of, you know, negative circumstances and all of that, but I've just adopted like a very level-headed like mindset where it's like, okay, if it's something that I can't help, then it's like, all right, well, I'm not gonna cry about it, I'm not gonna freak out about it. It just is what it is. And I think that also comes a lot with like my faith in God. Like personally, I just heavily believe that God is in control of all things. And in the Bible, it says that, you know, like all things work together for good for those who love God and are called to his purpose or whatever. So that means like even like bad things happen and they can, I just have like this intuition or this faith that it's going to work out for my good. And it's happened numerous times. And so I'm grateful for that. It was a long-winded answer, but
I love it. It was awesome. I'm just gonna go 1 second.
oh, check out these chats. Daughter of two
Okay.
SJs. They are not really open to most philosophical stuff. I'm reading the chats on the page. Oh, someone said I'm cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really
Yeah.
love how we have these discussions with people over the world. I agree.
Yeah, that's something I was thinking just now. Like, I've been thinking that, oh, I'm in a new country right now. I'm moved to the Netherlands. And I was thinking, okay, I need to get to know people in the Netherlands and I need to make friends here and everything and set my roots down in a way. But at the same time, realizing I also don't really need to do that at all, because there are so many cool people online and so many cool people to interact with through YouTube, through all of these places and everything. So, of course, it's good to get friends IRL, of course, as well. But in a way, I should also be connecting more with people online.
Yeah, I agree. I've always been the type to like connect with people online. I like finding like-minded people in general because and I think maybe just being intuitive, like that's what it is. Like it's hard to find people who are like-minded around you like a lot of the time. And it's just much easier to like look online and then find these communities and everything that you fit into well enough. So I'm very thankful for the internet.
I was just thinking about the fact that you seem so very strong in your intuition and judging. I think if I would give you a subtype right now, I think it would probably be the red type, but I'm not sure. I'm still open to it. I would explain it like this. The red type has the strongest heart there of all the types, you could say. Like they are the most about going for their dreams and for making what they idealize or what they dream of happen. They're good at predicting the future and kind of resigning themselves to a knowing and trusting optimistically, like that I can make my dreams happen, I can make it possible. They are optimists typically about the future, like they see themselves as able to change and to make an impact and to create new things and new opportunities.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually agree with that. I just started learning about subtypes. I've even tried it. I've taken the Socionics subtype test 3 times, and I always get stuck on the last question. Literally get stuck. Like it says, like 99%. It's asking you like to pick a picture or whatever, and then it says give it a minute to give you the results. and I gave it all 3 times. Like the first time I gave it like 20 minutes, second time I gave it like an hour, third time I gave it overnight, and I just would wake up and still no results, and I'm like, okay, well this isn't really working. So I was confused as to like what my subtype may actually be, and I was thinking about like looking more into it. But yeah, that sounds like extremely accurate. It reminds me of Judy Hopps from Zootopia. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but she was ENFJ, and I relate extremely heavily to her, like how she had like a natural optimism. She was very she liked to compliment. She had charisma, all of that, but she had like a dream, a vision for what she wanted to do to make society better and all of that. And she had a lot of people like get in her way, like tell her like you can't do this, you can't do that. But she would find a way to do that, and I heavily relate. Like if I want to do something and I believe that this is the right thing for me to do, then I'm gonna just shoot for it. And maybe that's also because I'm an Enneagram 2 with 3, which is also something I've just been like. So I'm still not very well versed in Enneagram, but I believe like 2 is the helper, and then 3 is like the achiever. And so yeah, I don't know like if there's anything you can tell me about that, or if that will like further confirm your suspicions about my subtype.
Yeah, I've got a test for you that you can take on my website. It's for figuring out your strongest archetype, and for figuring out your Enneagram type and everything. I have all kinds of tests on my website. But in particular, I tend to talk about 4 particular subtypes: the red, yellow, green, and blue. And they are each correlated to the Enneagram types. So yellow types are often Enneagram 9s, for example. I have a very strong Enneagram 9 tendency. And then I have a fly buzzing around me right now. That's why I mentioned the mosquito thing. Um, the green ones tend to have a strong social instinct, like to live up to society's standards for what is beautiful, what's good, and what's appropriate, and fitting in a sense. The blue types tend to have a strong tree instinct, wanting to be admired and wanting like to have the teachers or like the society's stamp that they're good, that they're awesome, that they're doing good things in life.
Okay.
So all of them have Enneagram fixations and tendencies. You said you were 2, right?
Yeah, 2 with 3.
Yeah. And I also have a strong 2 tendency myself. And I think 2s are very inclined to be mentors and to seek out that role, especially ENFJs and INFJs, I think, like, because maybe an ISFJ2 or an ISTJ2 might express it differently. But I think my personal helper style is through advice and guidance, and the more soft guidance, really, than like the direct favors and services and so on.
Yeah, I understand. Well, that also makes sense too, because red has always been my favorite color. So I don't know if that has to do with anything. But I'd usually like whenever people usually like ask like what my favorite color is, I'd say red, because ironically, ever since I was a child, I admired leadership. So like the Red Ranger from Power Rangers, he was the leader, and then like everywhere else that I'd look, like it just seemed like red was the reoccurring like theme for leadership. So that's kind of the symbol that I've placed behind. So yeah, I don't know if that plays into the color of my archetype, but out there.
I've been thinking the same thing, really. I think I also like red a lot, I should say. And I have a strong red tendency in my past. But they've actually done research on it, and people who like red are often more extroverted and more proactive and more. In Pokemon Go, when Pokemon Go was launched, did you play it?
Yeah.
There
Yes.
they had like those 3 teams. They had the red ones that were brave and valiant, and and then they had the green ones that or I should say the blue ones that were like smart and analytical and strategic. And they had the yellow ones that, I don't know, like kind of, but it was not too well developed. But the people who picked red and who picked valor, of course, often were more inclined to have certain personality traits.
Interesting. I never knew that, actually. That's very interesting. I forgot which one I picked, but I believe that I picked red. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that I picked red. So interesting.
We're like thinking of rounding off the discussion. Do you have any final questions that you would like to ask?
Oh, well, we did discuss asking the what was the question that you posed? The marry, date, kill question. So I guess that'd be sort of like a humorous way to, I guess, expose, well, not, yeah, show a little bit more of, like, like where our minds are at, like with certain types, I believe, or like, like our interests. I don't know. And so I guess I'd pose that question to you, like, so which type would you, you know, putting your girlfriend aside, if that's possible?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. If I would marry an ENFP. I date an ENFP right now. I do really enjoy, love my girlfriend. I'm really fascinated by who she is and like her way of being, and I find it really stimulating to be around her. Um,
Mm,
but if I would say date someone, I would probably say another INFJ maybe, because if you want to date someone, I think it's also about learning about yourself. And I think if you date someone who is a lot like yourself, that's so many opportunities to get to know yourself better and to mature and to come more in touch with yourself.
interesting.
And if we take the kill question, I don't know, like uh, that's a
You don't
difficult
have to
one.
answer that question if you don't want to.
But I think that often we tend to look at our reverse type, like the ISTP for you and the ESTP for me, as our kind of rivals in a sense. Um, in a sense that they kind of represent different values and different like ideas of what to prioritize and so on. So I think that it's common for uh, there to be conflicts between these two types in particular.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's funny. My friend David, the INFJ, he also, we were talking yesterday, and we've talked about it numerous times, and he just expressed very heavily how much he just doesn't get along with ESTP, and he can never see himself with one, like, bother him. So I'm wondering now if that's like just an INFJ thing, like that could be true, the backwards thing. But ironically for me, I actually really admire ISTP. So I don't think they'd be the type that I would kill. And even in saying this, like, like there's I don't hate any type, and I'm sure that you don't hate any type or anything. And so, just for playful reasons, we asked this question. But if I had to any type, uh it'd probably be ISTJ. Yeah, just
Because
because
there's too many of them.
that is true. Yeah, they're the ones that I've experienced with, they're just so abrasive, and we clash heads a lot, like a lot. And it seems like, I'm trying to help them, and they just take me for granted, and they love to just shut down my ideas like really quickly, and make me feel like incompetent. So then that's when you get the whole like evil stare from me, sort of. So I guess, like, yeah, there's a lot of static between my type, or me, and ISTJ. I'm dating an ISFP right now, but I wouldn't put her in the dating category. I'd put her in the marriage category, just like you did with your girlfriend. I really admire them. Like, I look at Mulan, for example. Um, Favorite Disney princess, ISFP, for my opinion and everything. And they're just beautiful creatures. I've always loved Michael Jackson as well, ever since I was a child. So I just really admire like ISFP in general. And for sensor, like they're really intuitive for sensors as well. They're usually named as like the most intuitive of the sensors. So I have interesting conversations with them. And then the type that I would date, I would actually probably go with INFJ or INTP. Because INFJs, they're really sweet, and they remind me a lot of myself. I call them like my cognitive twin, and they just seem to really understand me. It's kind of like a Professor Xavier with Jean Grey type of relationship. So I think that's pretty cool. But I've also like grown a fond or like keen interest for like INTPs and like understanding like their minds and everything. And I feel like they're misunderstood most of the time. And I admire Felicity Smoke from Arrow. She's INTP, and it's like, oh wow, you know, I could see myself like dating one. Marriage, probably not, but you know. So yeah.
Yeah, I should say ISTJs are one of my favorite types. I had
Wow.
an ISTJ stepdad, and we always got along really well, and I've come to really appreciate ISTJs a lot. Um,
That's
they're
really
usually
great.
so like peaceful to be around, and they're easy to talk to overall. Like we typically talk over each other's heads, but it doesn't really matter because it's kind of like we're still getting to express ourselves around each other's, and it's still very fun dynamic. And I should say with the
Meet some
ESTP
of
thing,
those
like
ISTJs.
yeah,
I haven't met some like that yet, but hopefully some will change my mind. I definitely don't have those experiences.
I think it depends on what you want from them, and what you expect from them as well.
Yeah.
Because they are, of course, not good at giving emotional responses and validation and so on. So,
Mm,
but I don't know. I've never really felt like I needed it. So that's always been okay for me. But with
yeah.
ESTPs, I should say, ESTPs and INFJs, I think, are actually quite common to marry. Uh, and that's funny. Like it's also like I say they have a rivalry dynamic in a sense that they kind of clash on a lot of things. But I think that
Mm,
also sometimes creates an attraction that makes it a quite common partner. Like a lot of socionics people say duality is one of the ideals. I think
mm,
it's one of them perhaps, but I think ENFPs and people with our opposing first and last letter can also have benefits, and I think ISFPs for you like it can also be very common. I think same type relations are also very very common.
yeah, I wouldn't mind being with another ENFJ, I believe. I think like the only problem we'd probably like run into listening to each other enough because we want to say what we think. But if we got that under control, then it'd be pretty much set. So yeah, interesting analysis.
Yeah, I think like when with same type relationships, it's kind of like for an ENFJ, it would be maybe that both want to say what they think, but nobody
Yeah,
wants to understand necessarily the other person or to reflect on why the other person does what they do. Where for two
yeah,
INFJ stating, I think it's that both understand each other's, but nobody takes any action and actually addresses issues and actually changes and makes a difference. So it kind of remains static sometimes. Like I had an INFJ relationship, and it could have gone a lot better if I was more mature in myself and everything. But I think the biggest issue was that because none of us talked about what we wanted and expressed our needs with the other person, I
mm,
think things just grew stale to the end, where
mm,
it didn't. We just drifted apart.
yeah. I see. Yeah, I found like with me and other ENFJs, when we would like have discussions, it's hilarious because we just get so energetic. And so when one person says like one thing, it sparks something in the other person's mind. And now the other person is just excited for their turn to speak. And they're thinking about what they're going to say to that thing. They're not even listening to the rest of it. So I've now realized like whenever I'm speaking to another ENFJ, especially when they don't know about like MBTI, to let them speak and say everything and try like if they get me excited, try to focus on the rest of what they're saying before I say whatever I have to say. And so yeah, like I said, you know, like if I was able to like, you know, if both partners were able to like mature that mindset, then I think that could actually really work out as well. They'd be meeting each other's needs and they'd help each other grow in their weaker areas, in my opinion. also.
So this has been a really interesting stream, really interesting hangout. I think what I want to do now is I kind of want to round off, but then I want to recommend all of you here to go to Denzel Mensah's YouTube channel, and in a bit he will upload a follow-up where we talk about and keen in on some particular topics. Anything you want to say about that now?
Yeah. So far, I don't really have specifics on that just yet, but I think that naturally it'll just come up like as we get on the camera and we like rehash on what just happened over here. And so, yeah, not really much on what exactly is going to happen in that video, but I'm sure it'll be very interesting.
It definitely will. So that's all for today. Thank you all for joining up, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow.